This is the assembly as we start off. Before we start assembly, we have separated the upper and lower modules pieces, and this piece here, as you can see, everything's disconnected. We've already installed the clips from the OEM connectors that go inside the tank. And on the flange, we've gone ahead and installed all the butt splices for the temperature sensor and the level sensor. There are 3 plugs that have to be considered for inside the tank. And what we've done is we've marked one of them with a piece of electrical tape. We'll have to remove that. But effectively we have a feed line right here. It sends pressurized fuel to 2 Venturi jets. There's one on the driver's side and one on the passenger side. We're working on the passenger side here. And what I've gone through here and identified is this one being the passenger side and this one going to the driver's side. And this is important because we have marks on the lower module itself that show which one goes to what. And once you get this inside, it's going to be a little difficult to see what's going on, so we've gone ahead and identified this with a mark right here. So before we get started, go ahead and push everything down inside the tank. And at this point you want to deconflict all the hoses. You want to make sure they all route around behind the module. This is the front of the car, this is the back of the car. So everything's kind of pushed back right here. And then the module can be inserted as such. We're going to fold the socks down to get it in. And then the whole thing just kind of drops in place. Now that the lower module is inside the tank, I can reach inside here and connect all the connectors inside the tank. It's best to start with the small one first since it's at the bottom, and then the other 2 larger ones that are on the top. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, and now this is what it looks like after I've connected the in-tank plugs here. And we just want to leave it loose for right now. And all the pump wires and connectors are pointing towards the back of the car right now. Again, as we go through this, the whole idea is to make sure everything routes around behind the module because our level sender arm is going to be on the front and it's going to be swinging up in this corner here. So now that's loose, and you can see it's just loose inside the tank. We can just let it fall. Now we have our upper module where everything's been assembled, and it looks like a mess, but it's really not that bad. But the first thing we'll do is we'll reach in, we'll connect the temperature sensor first because it sits lowest inside the tank. So we can just do this by hand, just by reaching down. And it just presses into place, like that. And then we do the same thing with the level sender, and it clicks in place just like the OEM assembly does. Now that the temperature sensor and the level sender are connected, and we make sure as we're doing it the wires are kind of deconflicted from the level sender arm, then we're going to connect all 3 pump power wires. And it doesn't matter which pump you plug into what because it's all deconflicted on the assembly on the top here if you purchase Star wiring harness as well. So we'll go ahead and connect the pumps now. Now that the pumps are plugged in, we're going to install the what's called the CPAs, or connector position assurance, into the pump plugs. And they just clip in just in place to make sure that the pumps don't ever get disconnected. What we've included in the kit is a pair of threaded rods, and we just want to thread these in to the top of the mounting holes here, the threaded mounting holes in this position right here. And now that these are in place, we're going to use this to pick it up, push all the wires out of the way, and then slide the manifold, the flange, onto the lower assembly. Sometimes it's good to have an extra hand to do this while you make sure everything is away, because the big risk you have here is that one of these small wires or one of the pump wires will get caught in between our interface here, between the flange and the manifold here, and then you're going to have problems with either temperature sensor, level sensor, or pump shorting out. Now we've kind of set the manifold and the flange together here, and as you see, as we start pulling everything together, an extra hand is kind of helpful to get everything put in place here. So we'll just slide it all together, and then at the end of the game here, we're going to make sure all the connectors are apart, like such, and then we can start one of our screws, or 2 of them if you like. Now that the flange and the manifold are joined, we can remove the threaded rods and insert the last 2 screws. And I found it's kind of easiest to not tighten these up completely in terms of torquing them down just yet. but do that after we mount the mounting holes to the flange. But before we drop the flange down into the tank here, it's good to take a moment here to make sure that all your wires are, see, like this would be bad if we went ahead and bolted it down like this. So we want to make sure all of our wires are clear of the flange here, because we want to make sure this seals and you don't pinch any wires. Okay, now all those are together, and so we have 6 screws we can use to bolt the flange down to the top of the tank. It's important to make sure before you did this that that area where you're bolting everything down is clean, free of any debris or dirt, because it will interfere with the sealing of the flange to the tank, and you will have some fuel smell. Now that those are all tightened down, then I go through one last tightening sequence here for the manifold underneath the tank. And you're effectively done. We have done this installation outside the tank, and you can do it with the tank outside the car, but you can do it inside the car as well. But just because of the proximity and how close you have to get to the gas tank, it's a lot easier to do this with the tank outside the car, but just expect a little bit more of a challenge, especially being able to see inside the tank and wrestling everything with it inside the car.